What's going on, squad? This is E. Hobbs, aka Art of War, and we are here today for another video lesson in which I traded after hours in MULN and sold this morning at the open, roughly making $2,300. Now, what I'm always trying to look for within my technical read and process is consolidation, some sort of basing, leveling, but then of course, buying near that support and then selling somewhere in the resistance. Finding the in-between, meaning where is the sweet spot within that at the right time of day, ideally. And then of course, trying to get out of that trade prior to the selling off. So you're going to hear a lot of consistent terminology that I talk through all the time, but nevertheless, there is a process within that. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. It is Thursday, March 17th, 9:23 a.m. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate. Happy birthday to my sister who was actually born on St. Patrick's Day. And it is a pretty good day because we're seeing currently some green right now. And what you're looking at is MULN, that's Mullen Automotive Inc., .com or .com or whatever it is. But this stock has been consolidating for some time. What you're looking right here is pre-market, but if we go to the typical daily chart, let's get this VWAP out the way and we pull this up, you will see that it's had some run in the past, per se. Let's look at the the full year. So you see some right here. Can't really tell the volume. It's not that great. 500,000, 600,000 shares. So I don't really consider that a runner, but what it has done within recent is shown some great volume, right? And so you see this run up from here to here, which may not look like much, but it's coming from the 50 cent area to 160, big move for that type of stock. And it did it in multiple days, right? And then here on this day, it came down. Let's bring it in a little bit. And then, you had some sort of fail here, just kind of pulling back on itself and then bounced and then fail. But then you see how it's putting in these higher lows. And so it's putting in these higher lows. This was a big day with the volume, 628 million. This is a bigger company. Reminds you kind of like CEI, some of those trades that I've done in the past. But nevertheless, when you have that type of trade, that type of stock, it takes a little bit more to push this stock up. So I believe the CEO or somebody of credibility within the company was on yesterday talking about this stock. And so usually that's the pump and the dump, right? As soon as it's done with the interview, boom, the stock dumps off the news that was factored in already. But it actually held up. And so, if we're still focusing in on the technicals, you see it came up here in this run with some more volume, but then it held. And so what that lets you know is that this volume or these buyers are still in this stock and supporting it. And so a couple different times this has been shorted and it has dropped. So, when you're looking at your typical charts, when a stock ends up getting sold heavily, the volume ends up going out of it, it just fizzles out, right? But this one didn't do that. This one actually held the gains pretty well. Now, granted, it's choppy. As I mentioned, it's a bigger stock, but you see up here, these bag holders, and then of course it ends up falling down. But from that initial gap up here, which was Friday, March 11th, it's just been consolidating. And it looks kind of crazy from a choppiness standpoint, but look at these as the bottoms, where this is that consolidation in the range. And then it held yesterday. And what I was looking for yesterday was after that news that came out, and then with the Feds as well, you can never be too careful with that or too cautious, because 3 out of 4 stocks move with the overall markets. All that happened, and this was still staying up here, right? And so this is end of day, and I think it's up about roughly 15 cents or so, but it was green, and this was like a first green day. Well, I actually started to watch this aftermarket, and I said, okay, let's see how this is gonna hold. And I started to see it move, and I was focusing in on the 175, 180 level, because that's where it had initially topped out before, and the resistance was holding in pretty tightly there. So you see right here, This is that 180, 178, not an exact science, but these multiple tops right here, and right here, and then with volume as well. So all throughout here, with all of this volume was letting me know that this is a very, very strong resistive area. Yes, you have this up here, but that's more towards the whole number versus this risk. So I wanted to see how it was going to try to break through this resistance, right? And so if you think about where this resistance is here and where the resistance is here, I try to make my entry somewhere within that range. And if I can get within that range, I have a good chance of it either continually trying to battle the next level of risk of resistance, or it's going to test my risk. And if it breaks clearly through, that's my indicator to get all the way out. But it ended up failing at the beginning, coming back down to the 70s, but then it kept going, and I added to my position after hours. And so I'm in right now at 177, 7,500 shares, and it topped out yesterday in the 193 area, I believe. But then this morning, other traders see it. That's what you're banking on. And so it's a little bit more of an advanced trade. Obviously, I held it overnight, so there's the risk in that. But it's working out for right now. So here's the game plan. The game plan is ideally this spikes to the 220s, that resistance. Yes, I could try to go for more. But if you look at the daily doesn't substantiate much more after that. So again, here, we're talking about in this range right here, right at this 220 area. It's just a comfortability thing. For whatever reason, typically the 220s are typically failing initially on the stock. So I don't want to get caught in that pullback and not necessarily get my shares out. So I'm going to have 5,000 shares ready to take off then, and that'll leave me with 2,500. If it does start to fail and break the twos, I'm going to let some off as well. But I want to give it some opportunity, some time to spike. So we're about 10 seconds from the open. Let's see how this thing plays out. Yeah, let's put it 2,500, be selective. Don't want to get too itchy of a finger. All right, there's the bell, there's the open. So 207 was the initial pull on this. See a lot of big sales. See how I can't get back up. So ideally that 207 holds for this spike. There we go. If it breaks 208, it's going to start to slide some more. All right, I let off 2,500 shares there. See if we can get back over this 207. All right, so I let off another 2,500 shares. So now I have 2,500 shares left, right? And that's going to be sitting at 177. So now I can really assess this the right way. I've locked in some good profit, and now I can be very, very patient with this to where ideally I want to try to make my next entry around 945 because that's what's going to give me the true direction of this stock. I don't really want to believe in any of the choppiness right now because, again, it's a bigger stock, likely tries to move around, whips all over the place. I don't want to be a part of that. But at the same time, I don't want to be too patient, let this thing come all the way down. So the risk from here is going to be the 195 area. And the reason why the 195 area is important is because if you look here on a 2-minute, we'll put it at 2 minute just to look at it. Look where it topped out before. This is that original risk I was telling you about. So if this fails, which it has done many of times, I don't want to sit around for this. I want to get out of it. Now, the reality is it can break 2, which it looks like it's going to do, but I don't mind it breaking 2 so long as it just doesn't keep sliding. So you see it's being protected right now by the whole number. But again, it could go to 190, 198, 196, but as it breaks through that, which I identified a little bit earlier as 195-ish, then again, I just want to get the remaining balance out of there because it's not worth it at that point just to hold and hope. And here's the thing, not saying that everybody can do this because I do respect the PDT and I understand that. But with my account, I can get out of these stocks and get right back in them because of the size of my account and basically the work that's been put in to build this account up. So let's just keep watching it. 201 by 202. It's already dipped to 199. So again, I don't want to see it go down any further. So now I'm really gonna be a lot more tight with my risk on this. If it breaks 199, then I'm going to go ahead and get out because it did touch it. So you see some nice spike, and here we go. So I wish this had happened in the beginning to get my shares off, but So now with that 207, you saw when it spiked over 207. Again, that was just a daily high, I believe, on a specific day. We'll go to it at the end of the video. But now that it's over that, I don't want to risk that again. So if it does fail 207, I'm going to go ahead and get out of that. I should have added at 207, but again, it was something to where it just wasn't comfortable, didn't do it. So we move on. 211 by 212. So 217 was the pre-market high as well. So you figure if it gets past 217, we should be able to get into the 220s pretty good. $9.35, so literally only 5 minutes into the market open. Like it's trying to fail once again. Just a bigger companies. Again, it's hard for these bigger companies to move, even though this has good volume. Just hard. Just very, very hard. Just requires so much attention, so much buying power. And then on top of short sellers knowing that, on top of the bag holders as well. So it's just a battle right now. So imagine trying to enter this stock around this area and just, it's whipsawing around, 213, 214. There's really no clean direction yet. Let's see it tested. Nice. So you see that jump right there? So we got into it. I'm gonna let off half up here. Should have had that ready. That's lack of discipline on my part. Got it off. Got half of the 2,500 off. Or what was that? Not necessarily half, almost half. Got it. So now we have 1,250 left. So if this fails 217, we're out of this. went on ahead and jumped out right there. It touched 217, then wanted to drop back down. So that was roughly see 20. So yeah, about 2,500, I believe. So good solid trade to start the day off. If we go here, you see now it's failing. It's probably going to fail again if it can't reclaim that 217 pretty quickly. But if we go back here to the daily, as I mentioned, so right here was 209, and this was 196. So kind of what I did was I factored in the 195, which was a bigger day of movement in here, and just somewhere in between that 209 and that 195 area of resistance, and then of course watching the pre-market. So that's where I got those numbers from. And again, it's not an exact science, guys. It's just more of an understanding of where that risk reward needs to be at to be successful in the trade. And again, you're identifying that through multiple areas, multiple touch points, whether it's to the tops or the bottoms of these wicks, along with volume. But this one's pretty quick. This is eHobbs, aka Art of War. Once again, you can always find me on Twitter, Art of War EH3. Any questions, any concerns, definitely hit me up. Gladly answer questions. But hopefully everybody learned something from this and got a little bit better. Let's take the information and let's apply it. Talk to you guys soon. Let's keep winning. This is just a follow-up to the trade that you just saw that I talked through MULN. Today is Friday, March 18th, 11:46 a.m. And the only reason that I'm attaching this is because it's a continuation of the trade that I had already made. And so just to give you guys an update, I actually traded MULN, if you remember, in the morning time, and then I came back in the afternoon and I lost a little bit. I ended up losing roughly around about $600 of those gains of 2,400. So understanding that the opportunity was still there to profit, but it just didn't work out with the runner. So it was a lot of choppiness here. It broke out around 1:30ish, which is the ideal time because traders start to come back to their computer, but then it just continually failed. And so I tried to enter somewhere in here in the 240 range, thinking that this support here, this support right here, and then of course if it could get back over that 250 mark, which it did a couple times right here and right here, but just ended up failing. And I ended up exiting out of this at the bottom of the 240 range. I wasn't taking big positions, but it was just kind of like 1,000 cuts by razor blade, just nicks, and then I just kind of snapped out of it and said, you know what, if this is going to be here to profit, it'll be here tomorrow. And so the best thing that happened with this trade was that it actually went red. And so I took it overnight thinking that it was going to try to gap up or take shorties overnight. I ended up taking a little bit of profit from the 227 range at the end, right around 7:58 p.m. Yes, I always come back to my computer to check things, as any professional should. And then I actually got out of that position in the morning when it couldn't hold that 228 entry. And I said, you know what, if this is gonna go red to green, I would much rather go red to green without me in it initially, so I can evaluate the trade properly. And that's exactly what I did. And so psychology plays a big role in a lot of traders' success and failure. And so this ended up going to 219. And if you do the calculations, I'm not going to get too much into that, but the stock went SSR today. By going SSR, it makes it that much harder for the selling pressure, meaning that it cannot go down as easily, because anyone who wants to short this, they actually have to wait for an uptick. Well, when you have to wait for an uptick, that can create momentum to the upside. And that's exactly what happened with this setup. And so you got that initial spike here, came back down. Like I ideally always want to focus in on is at the 9:45 timeline. I actually got in a little bit earlier around this area right here in the 930s, because I saw that the 930s were trying to hold, knowing that it was SSR as well. And then I just started to ride the position up. I took 7,500 shares and I got it all the way up to 240-ish, and it looked like it wasn't going to hold green. But again, just the psychology of everything, I should have known. Shorties were already thinking that this was going to gap down, that it was going to fail because it was a bigger company. And I should have just been patient with that position because I had an excellent position at the 233 to 234 range. Well, this thing just continually did what it normally has done in the within the recent history, and that's another big thing. Just follow the recent history of stocks. It'll let you know what's probably going to happen in the future. And so it chopped around, ended up making a beautiful move. What I ended up doing was just continually buying the dips, just buying the dips, buying the dips, buying the dips, and literally we're taking 5,000, 7,500 share positions and just selling them along the way, Final move came here where it topped out, came back up to here around the 290-ish range. I ended up getting some sales off in the 288 area. So you're talking about me trading this all the way from the 230s to the 280s because of what? The volume and the history recently of this stock. How I mentioned it was holding its gains. If you can't remember that, rewind this video and go back to the top of this. But just holding gains, hot stock. We're not in a hot market, granted, but at the same time, when people are focusing on the stock, it creates that demand and creates that volume. Guys, yesterday this stock did 511 million in volume, shares traded, buying and selling. So obviously the focus and attention is here. For anyone to think that this was just going to fall apart, even if it had went red, you're just fooling yourself, right? So the advantage, the leverage was definitely to the upside. Once it went SSR, that's even more of an advantage because, again, of that uptick that I mentioned. So ended up making roughly around $2,000 today on it. So got everything back plus more on the trade. And I was playing it very, very safe. If we had been in a better market, maybe if I hadn't taken those losses of yesterday and just trying to recruit those gains, I would have did better. But again, psychology plays a heavy role into it. But at the end of the day, you can look at it as also as that I made that many mistakes and was still able to profit. And that's the beauty of trading. You don't have to be perfect. It's not an exact science. You just find your niche, you find the process, and then you continually duplicate that over and over again. So that was the video lesson, guys. Hopefully everything was explained okay. As I always say at the end of my videos, if you do have some sort of questions, some sort of concerns, if you're confused on anything, please reach out. You can always hit that comment button at the bottom of the video. But more importantly than that, hit the subscribe button as I will continually put out information. Eventually I will take requests to explain things a little bit further in detail, how I see them. But I always want to be able to give valid information. And the only way that I can do that is me, myself, going through that process, whether it be winners, whether it be losers. Again, the market has been very, very inconsistent. And so for the time being, just trying to show some sort of consistency from a profitability standpoint. But I always try to be as transparent as possible when it comes to my trades. I upload to Profitly all the time, and I keep that very, very consistent and up to date. So if you want to see what I'm doing, my thoughts, my preferences of trades, stocks I like to trade, you can always go there, right? But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that I'm helping someone else just like I was helped in the beginning. And so if you guys, again, have any questions, any comments or anything, please subscribe to the channel, but also leave your comments. Hopefully everybody has a safe trade in the market. Continually immerse yourself within the process, and the profits will be a foregone conclusion. Talk soon.